a lot of the people in my community are dealing with toxic relationships, and trying to get over them.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to sort of weigh in and help us with how to move on, how to get past that.
Absolutely.
And so what's, one of the things that you would suggest
Mhm.
for people to do?
Yeah. So here's the thing about, relationships in general, right? We get almost attached to how other people treat us, right? We want to be loved, we want to be respected, we want to, be in a relationship with somebody, whether it's a friend or whether it's a romantic relationship, right? We want to feel good in that relationship. And so what happens for many people is that they're looking for that other person to, in some way, make them feel important, valued, loved, right? Now, here's the problem. When you're dealing with a narcissist, you're dealing with a fundamentally broken human, and you are attached to how they're treating you, right? You're demanding you need to treat me with the love and the respect that I deserve, okay? Except the issue is that other human, because of their own inner issues that they have way before they met you, they're not capable. And what happens in toxic relationships is that this is all very unconscious, but people personalize that. So their emotions get so triggered by this person and their behavior, and then they go to try to fix or control or change the narcissist. If you would just behave in this way so that I can feel loved and I can feel valued. And that's where people can feel so emotionally damaged, because they're expecting this other person to make them feel in a way that that other person is just not capable of making them feel.
I totally agree. And that's super incredible insight. Was wondering if you could also sort of expound on the fact that, narcissists have this pattern that they have with in relationships, which is
Yeah.
love bomb, devalue, discard. And there's they kind of go back and forth between these various. I tell people all the time, it's not linear. It's not
No.
love bomb, stop, devalue, stop, discard, stop. They'll be love bombing, then devalue, love bomb, devalue. And can you talk about, from a psychological perspective, what's happening with somebody's brain when that's happening?
Yeah. So the narcissistic personality is really created by worthlessness, but the narcissist doesn't know that. Okay. So what happens um, in a person's life when they are very young, okay, something happens where they feel a fundamental sense of worthlessness. They don't even have to remember what it was, but this worthlessness gets created. And then this person will sort of try to overcompensate for that worthlessness um, by trying to control a lot of areas of his or her life. Okay, so as that's what's going on psychologically. Okay, is that the narcissist is very focused externally on control and on power, and so there's pretty much no willingness or availability to take ownership for themselves about how they are thinking in a way that's creating right the toxic parts of the relationships. In other words, they're going to blame everything and everyone but themselves for the reason why the relationship looks the way that it does. And that's just their pattern, right? And they're not capable of inwardly taking responsibility and ownership for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because, and you can tell me from the psychological perspective, But I think it's because if they somehow, it's a survival uh, protection for
Yeah,
them.
absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know, if they take responsibility, then somehow they're exposed as being worthless.
that's right. So, what's so interesting is that if you look at our physical brains, okay, and the hardwiring of our brains, going back millions of years ago, right, our brains were developed to keep us safe, okay, right? And millions of years ago, that meant like you weren't going to be eaten for dinner, okay? But nowadays, what that means is uh, you're hardwired to try to protect the inward thing that causes you the most pain. So if you think about the narcissist and their fundamental sense of worthlessness, their lives are wrapped around making sure that that feeling of worthlessness will never be touched by anyone or anything. So that's the survival mechanism, is let me control you so that you never have access to touch on that pain, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good stuff. Good
Yep.
stuff.
Yep. Yep.
So now, okay, now these people have gotten into a relationship with these people, and I personally have had to deal with them. I mean, I
Yep.
would say not husbands, because my my poor husband, I don't want people to think it's
Right.
him,
Yeah.
but other people in
Yeah.
my life who were close enough to me
Yeah.
to wreak havoc.
Yes.
And actually, you were kind enough to give me lots of great advice about one of them when
Yeah.
we were, roommates
Yep.
together, who's
Yep.
now, thank God, no longer a part of my life.
Right.
But it can. I tell people this, and I'm open about it because I want them to know that yes, I'm a successful attorney and I've done all these things in my life, but it can happen to anybody. And
Anybody.
if you're an empathic person and you want to be kind and you want to be generous and you think that you can help these people, and you end up doing these things, or it's a people pleaser problem or
Yeah.
whatever it is, but you end up getting sucked into that vortex of toxicity.
That's right.
And so, how do you move on? How do you get over this person? How do you get them out of your thoughts and out of your life?
Yeah. Yep. It's a great question. So the bottom line is, when you individually from within feel calm and at peace and good about yourself, you're able to recognize that you don't need this person or any person, really. You don't need anyone to make you feel good enough, loved enough, important enough. So, what's really crucial is that if you are somebody that needs to break away from a toxic relationship, that you're doing your own inner work. Okay. Because here's the thing, many people don't recognize that they have this automatic mind that talks to them all day long from the moment they get up to the moment they go to bed, and they listen to this mind. Okay, they identify with the thoughts in our minds, and by the way, we have 50,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day in our minds. Okay, and most people don't understand that our minds just go. We don't tell our minds where to go, it just goes, right? So it's just like our bodies breathe for us, our minds just go. And when you identify with all of the thoughts in your mind is whipping you all over the place, right? Why did he treat me that way? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with me? That there's something wrong with him, right? All these places right, when you're in that toxic relationship, you feel badly about yourself. So the healing is really about taking your relationship with yourself, right, to actually a completely relocated mind, okay, where you're no longer listening to the automatic thoughts of your old mind that, truth be told, have been playing on a loop for forever, right? So what's interesting is that, when you think about the feelings that come up within this toxic relationship, you might notice that on some level you've had these feelings before. They might not have been as intense, okay, but they've shown up in other areas of your life and they've shown up in other times. So a toxic relationship is really a mirror, right? For you to look at, where are the places where I lost myself? Where are the places where right, like you said, Rebecca, right? I've been a people pleaser. I've been an over functioner. I knew somewhere in my gut that this behavior was unacceptable, but I made excuses for it. I justified it, right? I had this inner feeling that I ignored, right? So when we can
I
tap
could
into
definitely say that was true for me
that's right.
from
That's
the
right.
beginning. From the beginning. Yeah.
And you know what? And I wonder if you hear this in the people that you work with, because that's what I hear. I mean, we're talking thousands of people. I knew from the beginning. I knew from the beginning. And I just, I thought that he could change or she could be different or whatever it is, right? That inner knowing is inner wisdom. And when we're operating from that old automatic mind, we're not tapped into inner wisdom. We'd rather stick with what we already have. We're very reluctant to let go, because in the letting go of the relationship, right, that's scary. Oh my God, we're alone, right? We don't have this person. What if I never get into a relationship again? What if I can't, live my life without my partner, right? So it's fear that keeps you stuck and attached to holding on to something that deep down is toxic, but you'd rather hold on to it than deal with all of the feelings of fear associated with letting it go. And so the healing for people is to be able to deal with that fear, but also know, right, that when you learn how to think in a way where you can feel good, you can design a different life moving forward, where you are no longer people pleasing and you're no longer accepting things that are unacceptable, and you are no longer ignoring that inner sense of wisdom and truth.
I know for me, it just, like all of a sudden, because it was like little things, because I was dealing with a covert narcissist. Well, I had two different ones in my life, but
Yeah.
the one that you knew about, it was, it was like this death by 1,000 cuts. There were like a whole bunch of little things that weren't right.
Yeah.
But, with covert narcissists, they're so subtle and they're really, really good at being passive aggressive and just manipulative enough to get under your skin, but they live on this balance of this teetering of just enough to annoy you and traumatize you, but not enough for the world to see what they're doing to you.
Yeah.
So the rest of the world sees them as good and kind and great and so nice and wonderful people, and only you see that other side of them. And so it's that whole gaslighting thing of making you think like you're the one that's crazy, because look, the rest of the world thinks I'm amazing.
Yes.
And so it's really, really tough. And I know for me, one of the things, because I'm a ruminator and I was like always obsessing over, what is this person doing? What are they going to do next? And, and so I would say one of the things that people can do to stop, and I say this in other videos as well, is like, don't obsess. Don't stop. I had this epiphany of, if I'm like obsessing about what this other person is going to do to me next, or is stabbing me behind the back, or whatever they're doing,
Yes.
I'm not creating. I'm not in positive mode. I'm not experiencing joy in my life at that moment.
Yes. Yes.
So can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. Okay. So obsessional thoughts, what that really is control. Okay. Let me think about this over and over and over again, so I can in some way control whether this person is going to hurt me. How is he or she behaving, right? What's going to happen, right? So that's all about trying to control your future, which is an illusion. It's impossible. Okay. Now, control issues put your physical brain into fight, flight, freeze, right? Remember, going back to that brain, that physical brain that's geared towards survival, okay? When we're trying to control something that we have no control over, which is somebody else's behavior, we have no control over how somebody else behaves, okay? But we're trying to find that control over something that we have no control over. So exactly what you're saying, when we're in
So say that again. Fight,
yeah,
flight,
yeah,
freeze.
fight, flight, freeze. It is the
Okay.
primitive part of our brain, okay? It is the primitive part of our brain that is only rooted in survival. That's your survival mechanism, okay? Is trying to control your future so that you don't have pain, which sets you up to always feel this overwhelming sense of fear because we can't control the future.
And we can't
So
control the other person.
you can't control the other person, and you can't control anything that isn't right here right now. You can control your thoughts, your emotions, and your behavior. And so when you are in fight, flight, freeze brain, you don't have access to the higher level of thinking in other parts of your brain. And it is those parts of your brain that are associated with creativity, innovation, groundedness, right? You don't have any access to that. So you get into, when you talk about obsession, what you're talking about is this repetitive thought loop where you've got a thought that leads to a feeling, that leads to a behavior, that leads to another thought, right? And before you know it, you're in this vicious cycle of a thought that keeps looping.
Yeah. And it just is like the loop of insanity. It's basically the definition of insanity, because there's never going to be any good outcome from that.
No.
And when you were saying something about, you were expecting this narcissist or this toxic person to, make you feel better or feel, love or whatever. The flip side of that is people who will say to me, he makes me feel like crap. He makes, or she makes me feel blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so giving them that power of saying, I'm going to allow you to dictate how I feel. And I'm giving you that permission to dictate how I feel. And you're giving this person who feels worthless about their own selves.
That's right.
To dictate how you're going to feel. And you're never going to have any satisfaction from that.
That's right.
So I want to also talk about, a lot of people who are dealing with these people, they're constantly going, why are they doing this? A reasonable person wouldn't act this way.
Right.
So talk about, how to stop trying to apply reason to unreasonable.
That's right. So where you lose your reasoning, right? If you are in a toxic relationship where you lose your reasoning is by buying into the thought, okay, which is really fundamentally a belief, right? A belief is a thought we think over and over and over again, okay? So the belief is you make me feel worthless, no good, right? You make me feel that way. Now, here's the thing. Okay, if you're a healthy person, the most fundamental thing that you can do as far as shifting into a different mind is recognizing that there isn't a human being alive that can make you feel worthless, unlovable, unimportant, no good. Okay, they behave how they behave. It is your thoughts about how they behave that makes you feel these emotions. And most people don't understand that, right? Most people do really believe that it is this person that makes me feel that way, or it is this circumstance that makes me feel that way.
So it's a faulty logic and cause and effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is our thoughts.
Right.
It starts with our thoughts. Our thoughts determine our emotions, determine our behavior. So when we can recognize, right, that we can control our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, we can let go and let people, they're going to behave how they behave. This narcissist is going to behave how she or he behaves. There is nothing that has nothing to do with you.
No.
And the only thing that we can do, right, when we're in a better mindset is
And
recognize,
even if they say it's your fault, you caused this, blah, blah, blah,
oh,
it's
the
still not. I
will.
mean, they're going to say that,
They're
right?
going to say that. That's part. Listen. So the narcissist's automatic thought is always it's your problem. That's what a narcissist does. There's no ability to take ownership, right?
Right.
And that's why they have a string of, right, like dysfunctional relationships. So the
So
narcissist will always blame you.
yeah, absolutely. And I know for me, one of the things that was really important I had to recognize, oh my God, this person is sick. Or these people that I'm dealing with are narcissists. That's what they are. They're not going to get better. It's really sad. It's too bad. You want things to be different because, I'm a fixer. I have always been able to fix things, make things happen, And
Yep.
so I thought that I could fix it, make it better, have it be at least cordial, have it be at least, but you just can't do that when you're dealing with a person who is sick.
No.
And so acknowledging your own behavior, acknowledging what you did to
Mhm.
um, allow this to happen
Yes.
is
Yes.
is I think really important, because then that actually allows you to take control over and realize, okay, I have control for the next time,
Yes.
and forgive yourself and go, okay, this happened and
Yes.
I can learn from this. And now I know these things, but
Yes.
allowing, I allowed it to happen.
Yes.
I mean, I love my Angelou's, where she says,
I was just
when
gonna
when
say.
people when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. And I didn't do that. And so
Yes.
I had to take responsibility for that and then forgive myself and then move on.
Yes. Yes.
So
So,
we have like a couple minutes, and I really want to get some of your like really awesome tidbits in there. So give us
okay.
your last thoughts on how people can really, move on and get over this.
Absolutely. Well, okay. So, also to quote Maya Angelou, because she's so brilliant.
I know, I
Um,
love.
oh, she's amazing, right?
Yeah.
So she says that we are blind until we see, and that when we know better, we do better. Okay.
Oh,
And
yes,
so,
that's such a good one.
right, right. So here's the way it is for all human beings on the planet. All human beings, our lives, right, are a journey. Okay. And so with every step that we, right, every chapter of our lives, we're blind until we see. And so rather than looking back and saying, I should have done this and I shouldn't have done that, the way that you can see this is this relationship, as toxic as it was, okay, it's all in service of your growth. It's
Mm,
all in service of your journey, right? Remember, I said
yeah.
before, it's a mirror, so that really almost you needed to be in this relationship and have this painful experience so that you can wake up, because human beings, unfortunately, for every one of us, we only grow when we're in pain.
Yeah,
And
it's
sometimes
so
we got to
true.
get hit in the face with a 2x4 before we wake up. And
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
toxic relationships do. They wake us up.
Yep.
Yep.
What is it, Rumi, that says something like where the wound is, that's where the light enters, or something like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
so good. And that's
Yep.
so true. And, honestly, I wrote books on negotiation. I presented at Camp Empowerment on negotiation.
Yep.
And, my whole thing about negotiating with a narcissist has been born from having to deal with real narcissists in my real life. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been able to help, now thousands and thousands of people
Right.
because of the pain that I suffered, and helping people get past that.
Exactly, exactly. That's why I developed Dethroning Your Inner Critic, because of my 30-year journey of needing to unhook from my own automatic mind and rewire a new mind, right? It's like
Yeah,
that's what happens. We learn from our pain and we
absolutely.
grow. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So, 8 ways to move on from narcissists. The first thing you have to do now, remember, you've been conditioned from the beginning. You've been love bombed, you've been charmed. They come along. They are the most charming, incredible people on the planet. Seriously, they know how to become exactly what it is that you need to see, because they've been reading you from the beginning. The reason why they know how to do that is because they started off from the time that they were children as needing this as a survival skill. I say, like Malcolm Gladwell's like 10,000 hours to achieve mastery, right? They had like their 10,000 hours by the time when they were like 10 years old, because this is a survival skill for them to be able to read people, to be able to become exactly what they need you to be, or you need them to be, rather. So they've been conditioning you from the beginning. So the first thing you need to do is go no contact. And that's like the hardest thing to do. So I say, step one, don't run, go no contact right away, because you are shutting down the fumes. You're shutting down that toxic energy, that toxic stuff that's in your air. I saw somebody talking one time about this analogy of somebody, and it's kind of gross, so I'm just gonna go there, okay? But it is kind of gross, but I have to go there. This analogy of somebody peeing in your pool, right? Like if you were standing in your own pool or your own hot tub or whatever, and somebody peed in it, you'd be like, that's disgusting. Get out and don't ever come here ever again. But that's kind of what they're doing. It's like that toxic stuff, like there, and you got to get it away from you. So you've got to go no contact so that you can start to clean up that energy, so you can start to feel better. Part of the way that you do that is, I'm going to say, go to number 2, which is to start to set boundaries for yourself. All right. So how do you set boundaries? Well, one of the ways that you can set boundaries for yourself is to have one form of communication, because one of the things that is going to happen when you decide to move on is that they're going to just go insane, because they realize that they're losing a form of narcissistic supply. They're losing their grip on you. The difference between you as a person and you as a possession, because they don't care about you as a person. They're going to love bomb you, and they're going to make it seem like they care about you as a person, but they don't care about you as a person. They're going to go after you as a possession. Oh, there goes my form of supply. There goes what I need. They need you to be filling that hole for them. They don't care about you as a person. They don't care about your needs or ever satisfying your needs. So they're going to light you up. They're going to show up at your house or office. They're going to be sending you all kinds of emails. They're going to be guilt tripping you. They're going to be flooding your inbox. They're going to be flooding your emails, flooding your texts. They're going to go crazy on you, and they're going to guilt trip you, and they know exactly the things to say. And you can't allow that to happen. So you've got to like winnow it down to one form of communication, and you've got to allow yourself to have that space to heal. And the communication, if you're having any communication at all, I say no communication at all. But if you have to communicate with this person, then it's got to be only one form of communication. And, it's only about the kids, or it's only about work, or it's only about this particular topic. So how do you set those boundaries? You pretend like you're reporting the news. Basically, you don't explain, you don't justify, you don't defend yourself. You don't need to go point by point by point and explain every single thing. If they send you this whole long email on every single thing, accusing you of everything under the sun. You can just say, I deny that. I deny everything you said there. That's all you need to say. And then you can just go through and pick out the one thing that you need to respond to, and that's it. And I recommend that if you have to correspond, you use email, or if you have children, you can use one of those apps that you want something that has a time and date stamp. You want something that can't be manipulated. Texts can be easily manipulated and they don't have a time and date stamp. Okay. So those are the first two ways that you can start to move on. The next way that you can start to move on is start to get educated. Start to get educated. Start to get information. Start to get all the knowledge that you can. Because the more knowledge that you start to gain, the more that you start to realize, hey, this wasn't me. This was them. And you start to realize this was a person that was broken. And you'll start to realize, I don't need to take this personally, because I know that I have value. And the faster you start to recognize that, the faster you will start to heal. So start to gain knowledge, start to get educated, start to understand narcissism, start to understand whatever it is that you need to understand, whatever it is the process is that you need to understand, right? So if you are getting ready to go into a negotiation, start understanding that process. If, whatever it is that you need to start educating yourself on, that's the next step of what you need to do. Okay. The next thing that you need to do is start documenting absolutely everything. Document, document, document. Absolutely everything. Document everything that you need to document, because you definitely are going to be needing to protect yourself. Remember that, they're going to try to trigger you. They're going to try to do things to try to get under your skin. Anticipate that. Start creating a strategy. Start creating your leverage. That's my SLAY methodology, right? So strategy, leverage, anticipate, focus on you. It works. It absolutely works. And remember, your leverage is going to be thinking about your diamond level supply and your coal level supply. What's going to be more important for a narcissist to protect and defend than the supply that they get from jerking you around, right? And that's how you develop it. And that's what I teach you in my SLAY program. And by the way, if you don't have access to a support system, we do offer that in my free Facebook group, so make sure you join that. You definitely want to have access to support. And we do have a sponsor on this channel, which is BetterHelp. And you can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung to get that help if you need it, because we just want you to have access to the help and support and guidance that you need, something that you can trust. We get commissions on that. It doesn't cost you any extra. So that's the next thing. The next thing that you're going to want to do is start to visualize the things that you actually want. Where is it that you want to go? What is it that you actually want to do? What is it that you want from your life? Because, a lot of times people don't think about that. When you're dealing with a narcissist, you spent so much time defending yourself, you forget to actually think about what it is that you want. And you've been erased for so long too, that you kind of almost forgot about the fact that you get to have needs, you get to have wants, you get to have thoughts for yourself, because they didn't allow that for you for so long either, too. So this is your moment. This is your moment to get to go, wow, I get to have a life. I get to think about the great things in my life. And, somebody recently said to me that he was going to think about the majors in his life instead of the minors in his life. And I thought that was such a beautiful thought. The majors in his life are the big F's, he said, instead of the small things. So, family and finances and, like the major amazing things in his life, right? So think about the big things in your life that matter to you the most. That matter to you the most, and for him, he included philanthropy in that. It's like an F sound, and he considered, all of the major things in his life that matter to him the most. So think about the things in your life that matter to you the most. Write those down and start visualizing those things. What matters to you the most, and start writing them out and start creating a plan for that. And then the next thing is, I want you to think about taking time to allow yourself to be okay with being sad, be okay with being angry, be okay with sitting with your feelings. So I'm going to just say, allow yourself to go, I'm going to just be okay with whatever it is that I feel. Because you know what? The only way out is through. And you can't rush that. You can't rush that. I just had a whole conversation with somebody who had dealt with a lot of trauma in many different ways, because of a husband, because of several different things. And she was, kind of upset with herself because she felt like she should be further along. And I reminded her it had only been like 6 months since certain things had happened, with her husband and with other things. And she was like, you know what? You're right. Has only been 6 months, so allow yourself time to process, and don't be too hard on yourself. If you're still feeling sad, you're still feeling angry, you're still feeling resentful, you're still feeling like you missed the person, that's okay too. Because, especially if you had a life with a person for a long time, that's all right. You can sit there and journal out what it is that you're feeling and say, I'm still feeling this or that or whatever. Emotions are tricky things, and things can be triggered by the craziest things too. We can be triggered by a smell. We can be triggered by hearing a song. We can be triggered by seeing somebody that you can be triggered just by seeing an interaction, because, our brain is networked, right? And just the familiarity of certain things causes a network of neurons to be engaged. And then there you are, it all gets lit up in there and things start getting fired up, and there you are, right? So it's okay to have that happen. So the next thing I'm going to say to you is find your vibe tribe. Find your vibe tribe, because that is critically important to have that support group. And I started to allude to that a little bit earlier in this, where I said, join the Facebook group and find, your therapist and that sort of thing. That is just so important to have that vibe tribe, to have that self-care, to find your ways to have your self-care. Because if you don't have ways to take care of yourself, have ways to find your vibe tribe, you're not going to make it, because you need support. One of the things that narcissists have done from the beginning is isolate you. And I do have an inner circle that I definitely invite you to join as well. It's my Slay Inner Circle, and the link for that is slayinnercircle.com. You want to have a place where you can go, where you can feel accepted, supported, loved, like the old Cheers show, right? Where everybody knows your name. Find your vibe tribe, find your people. You definitely, probably are going to want to have some sort of therapy, whether it's from a clergy or a therapist or something, really somebody who can help you with your trauma and, dealing, because you are in trauma. You are definitely, your body has dealt with a lot of trauma, and processing that trauma is so important. So important. Okay. And then the last thing that I'm going to suggest that you do is find something that you can pivot to. Find something that when your brain starts to go to the past, I want you to have something that you can immediately pivot to that is your present and your future. That helped me so much. It still helps me. I always joke that I can't leave my thoughts unsupervised. And so I want you to put in the comments right now, pivot, 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 because that is so important. That is something that it has been absolutely critical for me. When my thoughts start going into the dark alley of, I call it the ghetto of my brain, I have to find, the good neighborhood again. And how I do that is I find like the good neighborhood, the what am I focusing on that's creative for me? What am I focusing on that is helping people, like making good videos for you guys, or doing things that I know serve my purpose in life, is doing great things for serving my soul, making me feel better, making me feel like I know I'm doing the right thing in the world, and not allowing myself to go down the path of I'm in victim mode. Because anytime you allow the narcissist to rent space in your head free, they're not paying for that space, you're allowing yourself to be a victim. Don't give them that space. Don't give them that satisfaction. Move on. It's time to move on. It's time to pivot. It's time for you to slay. It's time for you to be the best version that you can be. And giving them any more time, any more space is not the best version of yourself. So the next video I want you to watch is self-care for dealing with narcissists. It's a great video that I did. I have tons and tons and tons of ways that you can engage in self-care, and because self-care is so important, touch on very briefly some of the ways that you've been able to help yourself move on and help yourself heal. If you want to just touch on that very briefly.
Yeah, I'll say first and foremost, what helped me the most years ago was I let someone in. I let the right person in. That person for me was my then girlfriend, now wife. And it's a lot of times easier said than done, because that's where we're most scared, where we're most vulnerable, where maybe we don't feel like we have anyone that we can trust or love enough, or trust and loves us enough to receive that in the way that we're still going to feel safe and secure. But I promise you, you do have at least one person in your life, or if you're wanting to make work and progress in this area, work towards developing and nurturing a relationship with someone. You could even be that someone. Get a pen and paper, journal, voice memo, like just get it out. Find the right person, let the right person in. Beyond that, getting consistent professional mental health help has really been my saving grace. I've done all the things, right? I've journaled, I've listened to all the podcasts, read all the self-help books. I've done years and years and years of self-help work, but also letting the right person in. But it wasn't really until I found consistent quality mental health help that I was able to really, really shed those layers and really, really move forward. And specifically for me, that came in a very radical psychotherapy experience called ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. About a year and a half ago, undergoing traditional psychotherapy coupled with ketamine therapy, multiple sessions. And in the first 1-2 sessions, I really got, I'd say years of work, because it really does do that. Like I was talking earlier, it allows detachment of the self. It allows detachment of the self to really look at my life and my experiences. And I went in with the intention to finally work through my PTSD, because it had been 16, 17 years at that time, and I was still stuck. I wanted to get into, which is weird to say out loud, I wanted to get over it. I wanted to just like, Chase, your dad passed away, like move on. He wants you to move on. But I didn't know how. There was still some part of me that was latching on. There was no latching on after that. So that was really the thing that catapulted me, moved me forward the most, and gave me personally, my experience, years and years of therapy in about, an hour experience, and really gave me closure and acceptance in a big, big way around the death of my father.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people that have used that and have found great success with it as well. And I do want to say, I'm not here condoning or saying everybody should go out and do that. I'm saying that for some people, it's been definitely helpful and successful.
And the beauty here in the United States, at least, it's a federally legal treatment, federally legal course of action. They have a lot of great services out there now where you can do this type of therapy, at home via telehealth. But my personal I've done them all. But I can tell you, me personally, especially at that level of emotional pain that I was in, again, going in with diagnosed finally PTSD, I can't imagine my life without that experience now, without those experiences. Truly getting closure around the death of my father. I can tell you now, after going through many experiences over the past year and a half, I am in acceptance of grief. This is the first time ever I've been able to hold conversation about this and just completely not even get a tear in my eye. Not that I'm disregarding those emotions. I know the pain is still there, and I know what I went through, but I can finally separate then from here and now.
Yeah.
And that was impossible for me before.
Right. So, I wanted you to share that experience and share how you've been able to move through your PTSD, move through your grief, move through your trauma, because I know that for the people who listen to me, the people in my community who are dealing with a lot of trauma in relationships, whether it's business, whether it's personal, they're dealing with transition. I know that listening to you, listening to your story will be immensely helpful for them. And to know you're here, you're on the other side. How are you feeling today?
Fantastic. I'm at peace. I actually had this weekend I shared earlier was the 18-year memorial, or 2 days ago from our recording. This was the 18-year memorial of my father's passing. He died January 22nd, 2005. And I went in this weekend for my most intense, my highest dose ketamine therapy session. And at the end of it, I was even sharing with my wife after, just peace. I am finally at peace. And I think whether you have lost a loved one, or you've been through a traumatic injury like myself, or just life, life is not easy for any of us these days. Your story is your story, and your trauma is your trauma. But I can tell you, if you've been doing the work and you're feeling there's still just something holding you down and you're still stuck, and it's your choice now to face that and to move forward, I can tell you, no matter which protocol you choose, and no matter what modality you go down, if you make that commitment to yourself with time and work, there is peace waiting for you. I believe that time heals all wounds, but that does not exclude us from doing the work alongside of time.
Absolutely.
And peace is where I'm at. And that is what I hope for everybody else.
For people who are so since you did Hoffman, and so anybody who's listening, we're talking about the Hoffman. It's a trauma program. It's very, very good. Right? Neither of us are affiliated with it. We just happen to both do it.
It's a charity. It's it's actually a charity formation.
Yeah. So it's the Hoffman Institute. But
yeah.
So for those of and both of us have dealt with narcissists and traumatic people in our lives, and so we both know the toll it can take on us and our mental state, and so we say this with all authenticity and humility. So for those people who are feeling that right now, and who are feeling, and smart people, brilliant people who are just in that situation right now, and they're going, okay, well, where do I start? This is great, and I would love to make money, and I would love to maybe do something. Where do they start? What can they do?
So I would suggest, do you mean from a point of view of just breaking free from a
Well, like
narcissist, or
to
just
make
being
money, start an
starting?
online business, or they're like looking at you going, hey, she was able to go online and start an online business and make a multi-million-dollar business from nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in my house in a small town somewhere listening to you. What would I do starting today?
I always would say the first thing to start with any business is, first of all, your purpose. So really understanding why you're doing something. And the reason I say that is because a business is just as hard as working for someone, all right? There's no easy route between either of them, but you have to do something you're passionate about, something you're excited about, something that you're actually this is why I want to get up every single day. So I think first and foremost, it's understanding what your purpose is, how you want to leave. I always think about how I want to leave this world better than I left it. And for me, my purpose is to really help female founders. So I created a marketing newsletter, which helps people get more customers, because I'm I want only 2% of women's businesses reach 7 figures. That's crazy to me. So my purpose was founded on that. I want to change the stats of women in business.
I get her newsletter.
And so focusing on that, and your purpose can be anything. I also think, don't get ahead of yourself into thinking, oh, well, how could I possibly monetize that? Because that's going to come down the line. But it's just what am I good at? And that can be anything from cooking to, I don't know, dancing to any of it. But really giving your spouse
arranging
time to create.
or whatever. Yes.
Anything these days. And then once you do that purpose stage, you start understanding and start looking into a little bit more around, okay, well, what will people buy for this? I mentioned it earlier. So it's what do you love doing? What are you good at? And how can you combine that with where the market is? What is the market doing? And are people buying these things? And what will people pay for? If you can find that combination, ask yourself, I always draw it, it's called the Ikigai, draw 4 circles. People watching this on YouTube can say, but 4 circles, and that overlap, you'll find something that could be a really great business. The second thing I would say.
So what are the 4 circles?
It's what I'm good at, or what I like what I enjoy, what I'm actually good at. The third one is what's happening in the market. And then the fourth one is what will people actually pay for?
Okay.
And so once you start looking at that, I want you to then go and explore things, go and play with ideas. Most people's businesses won't get off the ground because they don't even start to. They don't even get off the idea stage. And you don't even need to tell a soul about it. You can literally just start playing with things. And I'll just share. When in 2016, I decided I wanted to leave chiropractic, notice the timeline. 2016, I didn't found Boss Babe till 2018. It took me 2 years to figure out. In the meantime, I tried selling stuff on Amazon. I was okay, I'll learn to be even looked at MLM. I looked at all these things around how can I take an online business? And so I just want to be hey, if you're sitting here and you're wait, I've tried a couple of things, I've failed, don't give up. It's the same thing. You're trying to learn to walk right now. So the more times you can fall over, then you're going to stumble and land upon the piece that actually really starts getting that growth. So starting to try things. So the second thing I would say is audience. So really building an audience. Or if you have an audience, like how can you sell it? How can you reach people? And let's say you're arranging flowers, you don't need to be out on Instagram, but you might just be like in your neighborhood newsletter, or you might just be in your, like you might sell, I don't know, maybe you're a beekeeper and you're like, getting honey and you start selling that to the local shops, like whatever that looks like for you. It's just finding where that audience is at. Again, one of the biggest things I see most people like doing is they block themselves. Like it's actually, your job is like, really as an entrepreneur, is like not to take yourself out the race. Most people won't even leave the starting blocks because they take themselves out the race. They're like, oh my God, well, I'm never going to win. I'm never going to win that 100-meter race. So why would I even bother trying? Versus, wow, if I actually run the race, I'm already winning. Like I'm already ahead of most people. Most people don't even get out the starting blocks. So really giving yourself permission to be like, okay, like let me just see. And then you can just start the next third phase is like your revenue. Just start selling a couple of things, and selling things doesn't look like millions of dollars straight out the gate. It's just like, oh, I made $20 here, I made $100 here, I made $1,000 here. And again, I think, one thing that I really want to bring home to a lot of people on social media now, you watch content creators. So there's like, 4 billion people on social media. And what, like, most people are actually consuming the content of the same people, because there's only 1% that are actually content creators, but that's who most of us are watching, outside maybe some of our family and friends. You're getting professional content creators. So most people were getting this warped vision of what's happening in life. Like, oh my God, everyone is successful but me. Everyone has all this stuff but me. Everyone needs to have $1 million business, else they aren't XYZ. Whereas actually the reality is, everyone's just watching the same people. There's so many more there's only so many different ways to define success. It's not on a bank balance. It also doesn't have to be on social media. So there's so many different ways in your business, whether it be doing stuff on Facebook and Instagram and other platforms of social media, or doing stuff in person, working with shops, like getting if you are someone who's crafty and you want to make stuff, working with local organizations, or setting up a franchise that's a brick and mortar because you've always had an interest in, I don't know, massages, Ali Webb has Squeeze, I don't know. But I'm just like saying that it's really important to allow yourself to play in the zone around how you can bring revenue in, because then once you bring the revenue in, you can move on to 4, which is systemizing it, which is, okay, now I bought Summit, let me do more of that thing. And I remember your story, Rebecca, like you didn't necessarily, oh, I'm going to talk about narcissism, I'm going to do this YouTube. Then you started seeing, well, hang on a minute, this is a conversation that's really interesting, and starting to lean more into that. And then, so that's when you're starting to bring in the systems that support the revenue. And then it's about growth and scaling. So I would say like there's those 5 stages that I've always implemented, but I'll be honest with you, because I don't want anyone to feel like left out. Like the purpose phase is often the hardest phase. Like I think sometimes we forget to ask ourselves like what we actually want. And so spending time in that phase, creating that vision of your life, really, if I think why I ended up as a chiropractor was because I didn't really understand what I wanted in my life. Like I didn't really understand like who I was, what I wanted to create. That for me, I didn't want to live in the village that I grew up in. I didn't want to, live in a small town. I wanted to live in a big city. I wanted to have more experiences, but I didn't understand that in my 20s. And I think sometimes that can go into our 30s, 40s, 50s if we don't ask ourselves, well, what do I want? Like, actually, what do I want? Journal about it, vision about it. And that's when that purpose element. And today, in today's world, you can monetize anything. Like, there's people who are monetizing their feet because other people have foot fetishes. I mean, if that is not empowering to believe that you can sell anything.
My God. I didn't even know that. So there you go.
No, literally. It's a thing, apparently. Once I put my feet in an Instagram post and I had so many DMs, it was so weird.
Wow. Okay. So there you have it. There you have it. But, honestly, with social media nowadays and so many different avenues, like there's somebody who's going to buy something from somebody.
And it's that whole like victim thing. If you're not careful, if you hear yourself, oh, well, no one's going to buy my thing, check yourself, because if you don't actually underlying all of this, underlying those 5 pillars of purpose, audience, revenue, systems, and growth, underlying all of that is mindset. You will not achieve anything if you don't tell yourself you can achieve it. Like the first hurdle is actually saying, oh, I'm going to start a business, or, oh, I'm going to get out of this toxic relationship, or, oh, I'm going to do this thing. Like if you tell yourself you can't do it, it's really a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think there's that saying, like, whether you tell yourself you can or you can't, you're probably right.
Oh,
Because
100%.
it's self-fulfilling.
100%. You have to believe that you can. And I always say, when people say like, oh, it's not going to happen for me, I can't do it, they always get their way, whatever. I always say, okay, so do you want to be right about that? Or do you actually want to get what you want?
Exactly. Like that's actually a really good, really good. I've never heard someone say that. Like, do you want to be right about that? Because I think sometimes people do, because they're stuck in that thermostat, right? That's where they're comfortable.
Like,
But they're
okay, you
scared
get to be
admit it.
right. Go you.
Yeah, you
You're
get to be
right.
right, and you get to stay miserable if you want to.
Yeah.
Or you can be wrong and find the happiness that you feel you
Yeah,
deserve.
exactly.
I love that. So true.
Yeah.
So empowering.
So you think you're free from that narcissist, but guess what? There are some things that you need to know once you've escaped. And let me tell you, this is the one thing that I say to people all the time. You don't actually just leave a relationship with a narcissist. Nobody just nicely walks away and says, hey guys, this has been a nice, let's stay friends. I thought that I could do that. I was in a business relationship with a narcissist, and boy, was I dead wrong. I have a whole video on that, by the way. It's actually called I Was Dead Wrong. There are so many things that I was dead wrong about when it comes to that. You have to escape. People like run from relationships with narcissists. You end up like escaping with your hair on fire. It's like you're running from a burning building. So once you're out and you think you're out, what do you need to know? Well, number one, I'm going to give you 5. So you're going to want to stay all and watch all the way till the end. This is really, really important. Number one is that it's not over. As long as they think that there's some kind of supply to be had from you, they will never let you go. And so if you think that you're just going to give them what they want and you'll be able to leave, you are dead wrong. So don't think, well, they'll see how nice I am. They'll see that I'm being reasonable. I'll give them something right from the beginning. And, they say they want to settle nicely too. And you're just going to be dead wrong. You're going to end up being taken advantage of. And you're going to be halfway down the road and you're going to be really, really upset that you gave in all of these things. And now you're way in the hole with attorney's fees, and they're going to hold you to whatever you said you were going to give, and yet they won't want to give you anything, and they're going to constantly be moving the goalposts when it comes to trying to make settlements and things. And by the way, I have a whole video on why narcissists move goalposts. You can definitely check that out. But they're going to be keeping tabs on you. As long as they think that they can get supply from you, they're going to continue to do that. So it's not over as long as they think that they can. It's almost like there's peanut butter at the bottom of that jar. As long as they think that there's some kind of supply that they can get from you, it will not be over. So that's number one. Number two is that they're going to try to line up those flying monkeys, and they're going to try to line up your friends, and they're going to try to line up their friends against you. And they're going to go to, these people and try to divide and conquer and try to get them against you and try to make you feel isolated and try to make you feel alone. Even if they say, let's be friends and we're going to make this amicable and all of those things, regardless, they're going to go to, if you have a business relationship, they're going to go to the employees, they're going to do it behind your back, they're going to go to the clients, if you have children, they're going to go to the children and they're going to try to get the children on their side against you. I mean, that's what they do because they're super insecure, and it's just, they're going to try to make you look like the bad person. So that's number two. The number three is they may try to come back and say, let's get back together. Or even after they've attacked you and been heinous and horrible to you, it'll be like, well, I will drop all of this if we can still be business partners, or if we can still be married, or whatever. I mean, that happened to me actually in my business partnership that, after this person was absolutely awful, well, one of the offers was we remain in some sort of a business relationship. And I thought, what? Are you crazy? I mean, but that's, what they do. So don't fall for that. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. The answer is no. I do have a video on 5 signs of narcissistic hoovering. You do not do that. No. The answer is no. Let me think about it. No. All right. So that's number 3. Number 4 is they will move on and find a new supply source, because once they realize that your supply source is dwindling, they see that there's not much peanut butter left at the bottom of the jar. Oh, we got to go get a new jar. Okay, so they will find a new supply source. Don't be surprised. Don't be hurt. Don't take it personally. That is their food. That is their lifeblood. That is their oxygen. They literally are leeches or, vampires. I mean, they cannot survive on their own. So you will be dropped like a hot potato very quickly. I mean, as much as they say they couldn't live without you and they would be like a puddle on the floor or whatever, all those things that they said, and you're going to be like, oh my God, what? They moved on like so fast. And don't be surprised if it's somebody like in your circle, like your best friend, or, they've got to be business partners with one of your employees or somebody you knew, because they want to hurt you. They want to get back at you. So there's that too. So that's number 4. And if you're so ready to shut them down, just put shut them down in the comments right now, because I know you're so ready to shut them down. All right, that's number 4. And number 5, the number 5 thing that you should know that you need to remember after escaping a narcissist is what I've been talking about all the way here, is that you become public enemy number 1. You become public enemy number 1. They only see things in black and white. They cannot see gray. You're either for them or against them. You're either with them or you're not. And if you're against them, then you are public enemy number 1.